If you want one, take him now, because I can't handle both. The sentence cuts through the morning air like a blade. The square, once filled with bus horns and hurried footsteps, goes still. The woman, thin, her coat torn at the shoulder, presses two babies tight against her chest. Her face carries the weight of endless, sleepless nights. Her eyes, though, don't shake. They are steady, like someone with no way left to run. In front of her, a black, expensive car. The back door opens slowly. Out steps the man who once promised her the world, and later didn't even answer a call. He makes a quick move, brushing invisible dust off his suit. There is no dust. What there is the discomfort of someone dragged into a story he would rather erase. He stares at the woman as if she were an office issue, quick, cold, detached. Passers-by slow their steps. Some laugh, others whisper. A teenage girl raises her phone and starts recording. "My God, what a scene," someone says, not lowering their voice. "Are you out of your mind?" the man asks, keeping his distance. His tone is soft, but his arrogance doesn't need volume. "Putting on this drama here." "I have no drama," she replies, voice cracking but unbreakable. "I have hunger, I have diapers counted one by one. I have 2 kids I didn't bring into this world alone. I can't raise both by myself." The babies, twins only a few months old, turn their heads toward the noise of an arriving bus. One fusses, searching for milk. The other sleeps, mouth half open in exhaustion. The man looks away, as if the sight of need is too indecent for a public street. "That's not my problem," he spits. "How many times do I need to say it?" A laugh bursts behind them. 2 young guys, headphones around their necks, shake their heads in mockery. Look at that real-life soap opera. Millionaire and the ex with twins. The word millionaire lands where it should. Some recognize the man. They've seen him on magazine covers, in VIP boxes, in shining business launches. Others only see a pricey suit facing a woman torn apart by life, and the 2 visions, glamour and ruin, clash in the same place. "I didn't ask for charity," she presses on, holding back tears. "I asked for responsibility. But if responsibility is too much for you, then take one." And when she says take, her hands tremble. The baby who was dozing wakes and lets out a thin cry, as if sensing the ground shaking. The man steps back, not out of fear of a baby, but because the word take is heavy. It drags behind it lawyers, child support, headlines, DNA tests, shame. He glances around for a neat escape. None exists. The car can't shield him anymore. The driver pretends to read the dashboard, invisible as someone paid to vanish. "Do you hear yourself?" he snaps, impatience in his tone now. "Offering a child like something? A thing is what you made of me when you disappeared," she fires back, calm but sharp. "I don't want to get rid of anyone. I want to save them both, and I can't alone." A murmur spreads across the small crowd. An older woman with grocery bags adjusts her scarf and stares at the man like one checks spoiled fruit. "Help her, boy. This isn't right." The girl with the phone zooms in, searching for tears on the mother's face, for the cornered look of the wealthy man. Algorithms love public collapse. "How much do you want?" he says, like closing a bill. The words drop hollow. The old woman gasps, offended. The mother gives a smile that's almost a spasm. "Do you think I came here to sell my kids? I think you came to embarrass me," he shoots back, stepping slightly closer, the glare of his watch catching the sun. "And that, yes, has a price." She breathes deep. The square fades. The buses vanish. The laughs fade. Only the weight of 2 small bodies in her arms and the urgency of a decision with no manual remain. "I came because I have no other door to knock on. And because, whether you like it or not, these 2 carry half of a blood that runs in you." Her words hold no venom, only fact. And fact is a mirror many refuse to face. He looks away again. "Half-blood isn't proof, nor commitment," he mutters, tone clinical like reciting clauses. "Want to talk blood? Get a test? Want to talk law? Find a lawyer? Want to talk kids? Raise yours." "I'm raising them," she whispers, "as far as my strength goes." Then something unexpected happens. The sleeping baby opens his eyes and, for 2 seconds, locks on the man's face. That pure focus, without language, without interest, without memory of promises, pierces, defenses, money, never feels. The man blinks, annoyed with himself. His heart, betrayer, skips a beat. "Look at that same chin," one of the young guys mocks. "Copy and paste." The remark fuels the moment. People step closer. Suddenly, everyone is a genetics expert. Everyone swears they see the same eyes, the same nose, the same silence of the babies. The man feels the tide turning and tries to cover it with arrogance. "Enough. I won't debate my life here." "Then where?" she asks. "In the restaurant where I can't set foot? In the office where the receptionist blocks me? At the gala dinner where the lights stay dim so no one sees who serves and who eats?" He lifts his chin. "I don't owe you a stage. I never asked for a stage," she says. "I asked for bread." On a park bench, an old man who had stayed quiet until then folds his worn newspaper. His hands, veins showing, move slowly, like someone marking a page to return to later. He says nothing, not yet. He only watches. The eyes of a man who has already seen many egos collapse measure the scene with the precision of a clockmaker. The driver clears his throat. "Sir." "The appointment." The millionaire checks his watch again. Appointments have the advantage of being polite excuses to escape from battles one doesn't want to fight. "I can't stay," he says, reaching out, not to touch the babies, but to push the matter away from himself. "I'll send money. Solve your life." "How much is a hug at 3 in the morning worth?" she asks without sarcasm. "What's the price of a fever rising and not knowing what to do? How much is it to whisper, 'It will be all right,' when even you don't believe it? Tell me the cost, and I'll make the transfer." Her words touch ground where money doesn't speak. The man doesn't answer. His silence is filled by the sounds of the day. A barking dog, a car horn blaring, the call of a lottery vendor offering luck in small slips. The mother closes her eyes for a second, and when she opens them again, they shine with a decision that wounds and empowers at once. "I can't raise them both," she repeats lower, as if confessing a sin her own conscience has already forgiven. Her left arm shakes. Her right arm holds tighter. She takes a step. The world holds its breath. And at the edge of that step, in the tiny gap between the irreversible and the still possible, the baby about to be handed over lets out a short, thin cry, as if begging for words. The other, in reflex, answers with a brother's sob. The sound fills the square and rearranges loyalties. "Are you really going to do this?" the man asks, now with a trace of urgency he doesn't like admitting. "You're going to hand me a child? Here? I will save my children however I can," she says, "even if it means splitting my heart in two." The woman with the grocery bags wipes her eyes with the back of her hand. The teenage girl trembles, her camera shaking. The video is already news before it ends. The old man folds his paper and rises slowly, as if respecting the weight of the moment. The driver adjusts the mirror. The millionaire breathes heavy, like descending a staircase inside himself, and the mother takes half a step more. Then a shadow slips between them, a body that doesn't push but stands firm, a voice that doesn't shout but nails the moment. No one touches a child until the truth is heard. Who is it? Where did they come from? Why now? The entire square turns its head at once. The church clock marks an hour no one notices. The sun climbs a little higher on the tall building, and in that suspended second, when a destiny is almost chosen out of lack of choice, something, or someone, shifts the course of what seemed inevitable. But will what's about to be said be enough to stop the heart from being cut, or has the moment already passed? The man now shrinking before the crowd once carried a different face. Before the glow of headlines and the arrogance that clung to him like a shadow, he was just a young man with ambition, an easy smile, and words that knew where to land. She met him on an ordinary afternoon, behind the bakery counter where she worked. The smell of fresh bread clung to her worn apron, and the routine change counted coin by coin, trays heavy in her arms. seemed endless. He walked in as if he already owned the place, suit pressed, watch gleaming, but eyes light, almost playful. He asked for coffee, but what he really wanted was attention, and he got it. "You shouldn't be stuck behind this counter," he said with a tilted smile. "Your place is out there, enjoying life." She laughed, amused by his overblown confidence. She didn't know that sentence would be the first brick of the golden cage she would end up inside. Days later, he returned, then returned again. Small flowers appeared, invitations for outings that felt like rescues from a colorless routine. She, tired of being unseen, allowed herself to be seen. Her co-workers whispered, "Careful with men who have too many cars and not enough story." But the heart, naive, doesn't listen to warnings. She believed it was love. The romance was fast, almost a whirlwind. Restaurants she never thought she'd enter, laughter at tables bathed in light, gifts that masked the first signs of control. "Don't wear that skirt, it doesn't suit you. Don't talk to that guy, I don't like how he looks at you." Little rules spoken sweetly, disguised as care, but underneath they were invisible chains. She never asked for wealth. She only dreamed of respect. But to him, respect was a cheap currency. And when his boredom came, it was as sudden as his arrival in her life. A cold phone call. "It's over." No explanation, no chance for reply. Her number blocked. The door slammed. The news of her pregnancy landed like a double blow. Joy and fear. Joy at feeling the beginning of two lives inside her. Fear at knowing she would have to fight alone. Her belly grew with no witness. The nausea, the restless nights, the rushed checkups at public clinics. All endured without the hand that once promised to stay. And while she pinched every coin to survive, he appeared in newspapers, smiling, cutting ribbons at grand openings, boasting of million-dollar deals, posing beside women in glittering dresses. The contrast was brutal. While she counted coins to buy milk, he popped champagne bottles at parties. The neighbors murmured. Some, out of kindness, brought a pot of soup, a pack of diapers, a gentle piece of advice. Others, cruel, repeated that she got herself into this, and rich men don't notice poor people for free. The words hurt as much as hunger. When the day of the birth came, the cold room of the public hospital was the scene of a quiet battle. Two cries rang out at the same time, two small hearts beating outside her. The tired nurses smiled for a few seconds. She, between tears and sweat, promised quietly, "I will take care of you no matter what." But the cost proved bigger than any promise could foresee. The milk wasn't enough. The handed-down clothes tore. The bills grew like weeds. Cleaning jobs, hours in other people's homes, nights scrubbing clothes in icy tubs, everything to feed two hungry mouths. Her arms ached, but they never stopped. Every dawn, between bottles and cries, she thought of him, not with longing, but with anger. How could anyone deny the blood that ran the same in those little veins? How could he sleep on expensive sheets while his children shivered on worn mattresses? Resentment turned into courage. One afternoon, after seeing the nearly empty fridge and the kids fighting over the same broken toy, she made her decision. She would face the past, not for revenge, but to survive. If she had to humiliate herself in front of him to save the children, she would. So she came to the square with both in her arms and her heart in her throat. The scene now was not an impulse, but the result of accumulated pain. Each step that had led her here carried nights of hunger, tears hidden into a pillow, and unanswered questions. As she faced the suited man and his look of disdain, she remembered every fake smile, every empty promise. She also remembered the first touch, the first time she believed she was safe. All of that crumbled now, in front of curious strangers' eyes. "I can't take care of both," she had said, but what her soul was really shouting was, "I can't do this alone. You are a father too, you are part of this." The millionaire, however, didn't see children. He saw threat, exposure, risk to his flawless image, and the past he had buried under piles of money now returned in the form of two wide-eyed babies. They were living proof that wealth does not erase abandonment. That power doesn't buy eternal silence. That truth, sooner or later, always finds a stage, even if it's an ordinary square in front of strangers with the sun lighting wounds no one could pretend not to see. And that makeshift stage was just beginning to reveal the masks that would fall one by one. The air felt heavier, as if each breath had to be pulled out. The mother looked at the children in her arms, and her heart pounded in panic. Repeating that sentence, "I can't care for both," seemed to open a wound that would never heal. But there was no choice. Either she bowed to reality, or she watched both fall with her. The crowd's stares fixed on her like blades. Some felt pity, others scorn. Some were only curious, as if watching a free street show. She knew every word would be repeated in whispers, perhaps even go viral in phone videos. But at that moment, nothing weighed more than the hunger and the future of those boys. She lifted her right arm, as if offering the baby lying there. Her hands trembled, not from weakness, but from pain. "Take him," she said in a thin voice. The silence that followed was so deep that the distant clatter of a street vendor sounded like thunder. The millionaire didn't move. The arrogance that always protected him now battled a new discomfort. His eyes met the little one's for a few seconds. In that clear, judgment-free look, there was a reflection he had avoided from the start. The same features. A mocking laugh cut the air. "Look at that, offering him like merchandise," someone in the back said. Another added, "He should take him. At least it'd settle the blood debt." The comments were knives he tried to ignore, but he knew every word from the crowd was a stone thrown at his reputation. With a cold voice he replied, "You have no idea what you're saying. Giving a child away? That's madness. Madness is seeing 2 children starve and not having the strength to give them the basics," she shot back, steady. "I'd rather die, but if they are to survive, I'll cut my heart in 2. The crowd murmured. A woman dabbed her eyes. A young man shook his head in disbelief. The woman was laying out her soul in front of everyone, and this was not theater. It was despair. The millionaire felt the pressure rise. He needed to answer, to control the situation. So with poisonous irony, he said, "This one has my eyes. Maybe I'd even take him, not because I want to, but because you're worthless. Maybe with me he'd have a future." The words fell like stones. The mother widened her eyes, and the babies, as if sensing the tension, began to cry together. The sound filled the square in an almost unbearable way. People shifted, some outraged, others eager for the outcome. "You call me nothing, but you forget that this nothing once was everything to you," she said, voice trembling but firm. "And now, in front of everyone, you show what you really are, a man who runs from his own blood." He stepped forward, trying to impose control, but every word he spoke slipped away, unable to erase the scene. "You're ruining yourself. This scene, this drama, no one will pity you. It'll only prove you deserve nothing." The mother felt her legs weaken, but her heart stayed strong. She looked again at the twins, and the thought of losing them tore her apart. It was as if every fiber of her body screamed against splitting them, but reality pushed her to the edge. An impossible choice: sacrifice half to save the whole. The square seemed to hold its breath. Everyone waited for the final move, her handing the baby over, him accepting or refusing, and life breaking apart. Then a voice cut the air. The same deep voice of the old man who had closed his newspaper before. "Before any child changes arms, the truth must be spoken." All eyes turned to him. The man walked slowly, but each step carried a weight of authority even the millionaire couldn't ignore. The wrinkles on his face told of long years, and his steady eyes didn't flinch before anyone. "You can try to fool contracts, buy headlines, even run from memories. But you can't run from truth forever," he said, staring straight at the millionaire. The silence returned, thicker than before. The baby still cried, but now it sounded like background music for the revelation about to come. The mother, confused, looked at the old man like someone clinging to an unknown hope. The millionaire, on the other hand, felt his spine shiver. He knew that look. It wasn't from just a curious bystander, and for a moment the expensive suit didn't feel like armor. The old man stopped between them. No one takes any child until everything is said, because the weight this woman carries in her arms isn't only hers. It belongs to all of us who stayed quiet while the truth was buried. The stunned crowd pushed closer. The square turned into a courtroom in the open air. The mother breathed deep. The millionaire clenched his fists. And before any decision was made, the past threatened to blow open doors he thought locked forever. The old man's words rang out like hammer strikes on cold iron. But before they sank in, the crowd, hungry for spectacle, began to react with even more cruelty. The murmur turned to laughter in some corners. Others, instead of compassion, poured venom disguised as opinion. "Look at this. Now even a street lawyer wants to give a lecture," mocked a boy in a crooked cap, chewing gum. "This isn't our problem. If she can't raise them, just hand one over already," added a woman with arms crossed, phone raised, recording everything. The millionaire used the chorus to his advantage. He straightened his shoulders and raised his voice, trying to take back the scene. "See, this is what happens when you mix despair with irresponsibility. She's not a victim. It's choice, always was." The mother closed her eyes for a moment. She wished she could cover her baby's ears, but couldn't. The weight of the words was heavier than their bodies in her arms. Even so, she didn't bend. She opened her eyes with resolve and faced every mocking stare. "You think I chose hunger? You think I chose sleepless nights, borrowed clothes, closed doors? I didn't ask for luxury. I asked for respect, and he denied it. But instead of respect, laughter answered her." Two young men pointed at the babies, laughing loud. "Look, the nose is the same. No way to deny it. It's obvious. Then own up, millionaire, or are you going to say it's coincidence?" The millionaire clenched his teeth, but pretended indifference. "I won't answer street jokes." But inside, he felt the pressure mounting. The more the crowd saw resemblance in the twins, the more his mask cracked. The mother tried to speak, but a female voice cut in. If she wanted a good life, she should have held on to the man when she had the chance. Now she comes crying here, acting like a martyr. The words cut like knives. Her heart bled, but her eyes did not waver. She brought her face close to the children and whispered softly, like a vow, "You are not a burden. You are the reason I'm still standing." The old man tried to intervene. "Shame on you. These are children we're talking about. You don't laugh at a mother's pain." But the laughter carried on. The cruelty of the crowd seemed fueled by the millionaire's embarrassment, as if each jeer could shield him behind a wall of voices. "Just give one up and end this," said a man in a dress shirt, fidgeting with his watch. "You're holding up people with real appointments." "This is already a show," added another, switching on his camera. "Can't wait to see this blow up online." The millionaire took a heavy breath and, with fake calm, said, "See, even they know you're being ridiculous. You humiliate yourself, and I have nothing to do with it." The mother, however, could no longer bear the chorus of ridicule. Pain turned to courage. She straightened her back, lifted the babies higher, and shouted, voice shaky but unbroken, "You laugh at me because you've never had to choose between eating or feeding your child. You mock me because you've never begged for medicine at midnight to bring down a fever. You call me ridiculous, but I am still here fighting for them." A heavy silence fell. The whole square felt the weight of her words. Even the mockers for a moment lowered their eyes. The twins now cried louder, as if answering the chorus of cruelty, and the cries of the innocent were impossible to ignore. The old man, steady, placed a hand on her shoulder and said, "Don't worry. Mockery has always been the weapon of cowards, but cowardice leaves no heirs, writes no history. Truth does. And it's only just beginning to be spoken here." The millionaire, unsettled, cast a look of disdain, but deep down he felt the ground shake. The laughter of the crowd no longer shielded him. On the contrary, it was turning against him, exposing a truth his pride tried to deny. The mother breathed deeply, eyes brimming, clutching her children even tighter. She was alone, yes, but not defeated. because every jeer thrown at her only turned her into a wall. And the millionaire, realizing the ground was slipping away, chose his next move, a cruel one. The silence after the mother's cry still hung heavy when the millionaire adjusted his jacket and stepped forward. The crowd, curious, made space instinctively. The sound of the twins' sobs hammered in everyone's hearts, but he, cold as marble, let no crack show. With a slow, almost calculated gesture, he pointed to the baby in her right arm. "This one," he said, tilting his head, "has something of me. The chin, maybe, the eyes, hard not to notice." The crowd buzzed instantly. Some nodded in agreement, others laughed nervously, others exchanged glances, as if finally hearing the truth from his own lips. The mother, however, felt her body tremble. His words ripped another piece of her away. "So, you admit it?" she asked, her voice breaking with anxiety. He raised an eyebrow and let a mocking smile slip. "Admit? I only said he looks a little like me. But without a test, anyone can say anything. Especially you, who loves a scene." The cruelty in his tone drew uneasy laughs from some in the crowd. Others, outraged, shook their heads. The old man narrowed his eyes, but stayed quiet, watching the dirty game unfold. The mother held the baby tighter, as if to shield him from those words. "This isn't theater. It's life. They are your flesh, your blood. No paper is needed to prove what everyone's eyes already see." The millionaire, impatient, gestured for her to come closer. "Show me his face. I want a better look." She hesitated. The request felt less like recognition and more like possession, as if he were inspecting an object. But with all eyes fixed on her, she stepped forward, revealing the little one wrapped in a faded blanket. The man leaned in. For a second, his mask of arrogance cracked. The child's features were undeniable, the same curious eyes, the same curve of the lips, even the shape of the nose mirrored his. An innocent reflection that screamed truth. The crowd erupted. "He's identical. No way to deny it. It's obvious." The millionaire stepped back slightly, swallowing hard, then quickly recovered his coldness. "Maybe I'll take him with me," he said cruelly. "Not because I want to, but because with you he has no future. He'll end up in misery with no chance. With me, at least, he'd have opportunities." The mother's heart sank. The world spun. What he offered wasn't help. It was kidnapping dressed as generosity. It was ripping her in half and leaving her to rot as if she had never existed. "You mean you'd only take one?" she asked, breathless. He smirked. "One is enough. Two would be too much, even for me. And let's be honest, you should be grateful. I'm giving you a chance for one of them to be saved. Better than watching both sink with you." The crowd split. Some shook their heads in outrage. Others muttered it might be the only way. A man at the back shouted, "Take it, lady. At least one will have a good life." The words stabbed her soul like knives. Her eyes burned. Her left arm trembled, clutching the other baby, who cried in confusion. How could she separate brothers? How could she choose one to grow in luxury and the other to be raised in shadows? The thought was more cruel than hunger itself. "You're not giving me a choice. You're tearing out what's left of me," she said, tears streaming down her face. The millionaire crossed his arms firmly. "Call it what you want, but it's the best solution for everyone." The old man then stepped forward, his deep voice slicing through the tension. "Best solution? For who? For you, who washes your conscience in front of strangers? Or for her, who will go to bed every night hearing the echo of the child's cry she lost to a man's pride?" Silence fell at once. The millionaire glared at him with fury but said nothing. The crowd, though, began to stir. The naked truth, spoken aloud, weighed in the air. The mother, sobbing, shook her head. I can't split them. They are part of each other. If you take one, you kill them both." The millionaire, cold, shot back. "Then get ready to watch them both waste away, because with me at least, one has a future." The entire square seemed to hold its breath. The cruel, merciless dilemma stood before them. and the twins' cries grew louder as if they could feel the storm pressing in. The mother pulled them against her chest, as if trying to stitch her broken heart back together before it tore apart completely. And in that instant, everyone understood. The real weight of the decision wasn't about giving away a child or not. It was about standing against the arrogance of a man willing to use even the innocent as trophies of power. The scene had no end yet, but everyone knew that from that moment on, nothing would ever be the same. She took a deep breath. Her chest heaved, not only from the weight of the babies, but from the avalanche of emotions crushing her. The millionaire, cold, still wore that look of superiority. The crowd, divided, murmured among themselves, as if debating which side deserved applause and which deserved scorn. She knew, if she didn't speak now, if she didn't show the raw truth, she'd be swallowed by contempt and ridicule. She held the twins tightly, lifted her tear-streaked face, and with a trembling but fiery voice she shouted, "You laugh at me because you've never spent nights awake with 2 children in your arms and nothing to feed them. You call me pathetic because you've never had to choose between buying bread or paying rent. You mock me because you don't know what it's like to work all day and still come home to an empty fridge." Her words echoed across the square. Some who had laughed stopped, ashamed. A woman holding heavy grocery bags tilted her head. "Move." A man at the back muttered, "It's true. We talk too much without knowing." But she didn't stop. Her despair had turned into courage. "I scrubbed floors at night to afford a pack of diapers. I begged neighbors for a little milk. I skipped meals so they could fill their stomachs. And still, I stand here holding both of them. Not because it's easy, but because I am a mother. And mothers do not abandon." Her voice now thundered. The millionaire pressed his lips, uneasy. The old man watched closely, as if each phrase was a brick rebuilding her dignity before them all. She turned directly to the man who humiliated her. "You say one of them would have a future with you, but what is a future without love? What is wealth without a hug? You've never felt a fever spike at night, never ran with a child in your arms to the hospital, never heard the silence of hunger inside a house. I lived all that, and I'm still alive, because I fought for them." The crowd reacted. Murmurs turned into timid applause. The market woman clapped first, then others joined. It wasn't applause for a show, but for respect. The millionaire, seeing it, narrowed his eyes in irritation. "This is cheap manipulation," he said, trying to regain control. "Made-up dramas to play the victim." But it backfired. A man in a wrinkled suit, who had been silent until then, shouted, "If it's made up, why do those boys look just like you? Why are you so rattled?" The crowd roared in agreement. The mother seized the moment. She raised the twins higher like living banners. "These are my children. I won't choose one to throw away. I won't rip out a piece of my heart to ease your conscience. If they survive, it'll be with me. If they fall, they'll fall in my arms. But I won't hand them over to a man who never knew what love is." The baby's cries stopped for a moment, as if the warmth of her voice was enough to soothe them. The silence that followed was broken only by applause, now louder. The shame began to shift sides. The millionaire tried to keep his posture, but his face betrayed his unease. The old man then spoke softly, but with authority. "See, this woman has more courage in torn clothes than you have in your fine suits. And courage, sir, cannot be bought." The mother, tears streaming down her face, smiled for the first time. Not a smile of victory, but of resistance. Of someone who knew storms were still ahead, but no longer stood alone. The crowd that once mocked her began to quiet in the face of truth. Ridicule gave way to shame, and her courage became a mirror everyone feared to look into. The millionaire, sensing the tide turning, drew a long breath and decided he needed another tactic. If he couldn't win with indifference, he'd wield arrogance. And so he laid out cruel conditions, trying to flip the game in his favor. The millionaire straightened his jacket, breathed deep, and before the crowd that was turning against him, let out a cold smile, the kind that hid poison behind perfect teeth. "You want me to acknowledge these children so badly?" he said, crossing his arms. Then you'll accept my terms. Nothing comes free, especially when what's at stake is my name, my fortune, and my image. The square fell silent. The wind swept through, raising dust at the spectators' feet like a drumroll. Everyone waited for his next words, like a judge's sentence. The millionaire continued, "If I take one of them with me, you'll sign a document giving up every right. No child support, no public scandals, no contact. You'll vanish from his life as if you never existed. Only then will I agree." Shock rippled through the crowd like electricity. Some covered their mouths, others shook their heads in outrage. The old man, eyes steady, stepped forward, but the mother raised her hand, asking for silence. Tears streamed down her face, but her gaze burned bright. "You want to rip my child away and erase the mother from his story? You want to turn him into a trophy, without roots, without truth? I want to give him a future you can't provide," the millionaire shot back, dry and sharp. "With me, he'll have schooling, comfort, opportunities. With you, only hunger and shame. I'm just putting order into what you admitted you can't handle." The weight of his words stirred the crowd. Some, more pragmatic, whispered, "At least the boy would have everything." Others, outraged, muttered, "This isn't an offer, it's kidnapping." The mother drew a deep breath, pressed the twins tighter to her chest, and spoke loud enough for all to hear. "I may not have riches, but I have love, and love cannot be traded by contract. Love doesn't need papers to exist. I will not sign away my children's right to know who they are and where they come from." The millionaire narrowed his eyes in irritation. "Then don't complain later. Life is about choices, and you're choosing failure for them." The old man cut in, his deep voice slicing the air like a blade. "The failure isn't hers. The failure is of a man who has everything yet doesn't know how to be human. Wealth can buy silence, but it can't erase the truth screaming from these children's eyes." Some in the crowd clapped at his words, others recorded every second, certain the video would spread through the city before sunset. The millionaire, sensing the ground slipping, raised his voice in defiance. "Fine, if you want me to prove I'm the father, bring me a test. Until then, I'm nothing but the target of blackmail. And hear me well, if this continues, I'll unleash my lawyers. They know how to bury cases like this before they even reach the courthouse." The threat poisoned the air. The mother closed her eyes briefly, searching for strength. Her heart screamed to fight, but reason feared the cost of facing such power. The crowd waited for her answer. Some eyes full of compassion, others still doubtful, but all eager for the next move in this uneven war. She opened her eyes then, brimming with tears, but sharp like a blade. "You may have money, you may have lawyers, you may have headlines, but I have the truth, and truth cannot be buried. If I must, I'll scream until I lose my voice. If I must, I'll face the whole world. But I won't sign a sentence that kills half the heart of my children." The square erupted in murmurs, some clapping, others arguing. The millionaire, cornered, hardened his face, realizing that the more he spoke, the more he exposed himself as the cold man he truly was. In that moment, everyone understood the fight was far from over. With each cruel condition he imposed, the weight grew heavier, and the battle neared the point of no return. The air hung still. Not even the wind dared cut through the square. The mother, trembling, held the twins as if holding her own heart split in two. The millionaire, stone-faced, waited for her to yield to his cruel terms. And the crowd, silent, watched like spectators of a play where everyone knew the next act would be devastating. She looked at her babies. The one in her right arm whimpered, searching for a firmer embrace. The one in her left slept with lips slightly open. How could she choose? How could she separate what was born together, shared the same womb, the same cry, the same warmth? Her voice came out almost as a whisper. "I don't know if I can..." A murmur spread through the crowd. Some whispered, "She's going to give in." Others, "Don't do it." The millionaire, cold, stepped closer, extending his hands. "Decide now. I don't have all day." Her legs wavered. Her right arm began to weaken, as if the baby's weight were heavier than all her strength. Tears streamed openly. The whole world seemed to spin around that one gesture, to give or not to give. Suddenly, the baby about to be handed over let out a piercing, desperate cry, as if he sensed the fate closing in. The other, in reflex, cried too, forming a chorus of pain that sent chills through the square. "They know," whispered the market woman, voice breaking. "These children know." The mother, broken, closed her eyes. She was about to give in, when a deep voice cut through the moment. "Enough." The silence fell like a heavy curtain. Everyone turned to see the figure approaching slowly. It was the same old man who had spoken before, but now his posture was different, firm, unshakable, like someone carrying a secret that could no longer be kept. He stepped between the mother and the millionaire. He raised his hand, stopping the gesture of surrender. "No child will be touched until the truth is spoken." The millionaire frowned, annoyed. "Who are you to interfere here?" The old man, unshaken, stared straight at him. "I'm someone who has seen too much, who knows too much, and who can no longer remain silent. You can trick contracts, hire lawyers, twist newspapers, but you cannot trick the truth. And today, truth has come for you." The crowd held its breath. The mother, confused, hugged her children tighter, as if this intervention was the last barrier against loss. The old man went on. "Everyone here can see the faces of these children. Everyone knew who the father was. But what many didn't know was that he had run before. He had run from responsibility, run from others who also carried his blood. He had buried scandals, bought silence, and I know because I was called more than once to erase his tracks, and I won't erase them anymore." Shock rippled through the square. Some exchanged stunned looks. The millionaire went pale but tried to recover his stance. "Lies, words of a bitter old man. Don't be fooled." But his voice no longer carried the same weight. The mask was starting to crack. The mother, shaken, asked, "Are you saying I'm not the only one?" The old man nodded slowly. "You're not the first, but you could be the last to stay silent, because now you're not alone. You stand before everyone, and the truth no longer fits under any rug." The twins' cries, once loud, softened, as if even they were waiting for what was to come. The square, filled with curiosity and anger, leaned against the millionaire. Even the air itself seemed to demand confession. The millionaire burst out, "You think I got where I am by being a saint? You think wealth is built on good intentions? I did what I had to do, and I'd do it again." His words came like poison, but also like confession. The crowd reacted in outrage. "Shame!" shouted someone. "Monster!" screamed another. Phones were raised, recording every detail, every gesture, every word. The mother, still in tears, lifted her children like banners. Then everyone heard it. He confessed himself, "No heart, never a father, and I will not give up my children. I'd rather fight alone than let them become trophies of a soulless man." The square erupted in cheers and shouts. The shame that once sat on the mother's shoulders now crashed fully onto the millionaire. The old man, steady, turned to her and said with calm authority, "You conquered the hardest part today. You conquered the fear of speaking. The rest is only consequence." The millionaire, cornered, searched for an escape, but there were no more holes to crawl into. The crowd already condemned him, not in a court of law, but in the merciless trial of public eyes. The scene reached its peak, and everyone knew nothing could return to what it was. The millionaire tried to hold his pose, but sweat on his forehead betrayed what the expensive suit could not hide: fear. The old man stepped forward, his voice ringing like a bell. "You all heard. He confessed. But what you may not know is that I stood by him when these dirty deals began. I was lawyer, consultant, unwilling accomplice to every contract that erased lives and stories. And I can tell you, these boys are not the first to carry the weight of his abandonment." The murmur spread like a wave. People exchanged furious looks. Others lifted their phones higher, capturing every second. Some shouted, "Tell us more! Expose it all!" The millionaire raised his hand, trying to impose control. "Don't listen. This old man is delirious. He has no proof." The old man gave a bitter smile. "Proof? I kept every document you ordered destroyed. Fake contracts, hush agreements, transfers made to silence voices. You forgot not every man sold himself to your fortune. I saw children denied, mothers crushed, and I always asked myself how long silence would chase me. Today, I found the answer. Until this moment. The crowd erupted like a lit fuse. "Monster!" someone cried. "How many families did you destroy?" Another demanded. The mother, clutching her twins, looked at the old man as if seeing a door open. "So, it wasn't just me?" she asked, voice breaking. He shook his head heavily. "No, you weren't the only one. But you can be the first not to be silenced." The millionaire exploded. "This is a farce. You don't understand. I built wealth, gave jobs, kept this city moving, and you dare condemn me for personal choices?" But his voice no longer echoed. The crowd that once hesitated now turned against him like a raging sea. Cries of revolt spread. "Heartless rich man. No soul. Where's justice now?" The old man's voice rose again. "You want to know who he really is? This man isn't a millionaire by merit. He's a millionaire because he always found someone else to pay the price. He left scars on others while he dressed himself in luxury. But today the bill has come." The crowd roared like a stadium. The millionaire tried to step forward, but he was stopped not by hands, but by stares. Every stare was a wall, every raised phone a sentence. The mother, now strengthened, faced him directly. "You wanted to rip away one child to save your image, but now everyone knows no image can save a man without a soul." The silence that followed was heavier than any scream. Even the twins in her arms grew quiet, as if they sensed something decisive had happened. The millionaire panted like a cornered animal. The crowd did not touch him, but surrounded him with pure indignation. The old man, resolute, delivered the final blow. "You may still have money, but you no longer have respect. You may have houses, but no shelter. You may have power, but you've lost what no power can buy: dignity. And now everyone here is witness." A chorus of voices erupted. "Shame! Take responsibility! Ask forgiveness!" The millionaire, with no way out, stepped back until his body pressed against the open black car still waiting for him. The driver, pale, didn't dare move. For the first time, the millionaire didn't look like the owner of anything, only of his own downfall. The mother, still in tears, raised the twins for all to see. They don't need his name. They don't need his fortune. They only need to know they were never abandoned by me, and that, I promise before everyone, will never happen. The applause that filled the square was no longer timid. It was thunder. People cried, people shouted, people clapped as if pushing that mother forward, as if holding her up with invisible hands. The millionaire rushed into the car, trying to hide, but it was too late. Every camera, every stare, every word spoken would remain. The perfect image he had fought so hard to protect had shattered in front of everyone. The old man then placed a hand on the mother's shoulder. "Today you showed that courage is stronger than any luxury. They will grow up knowing their mother stood up to an empire and did not stay silent." She smiled through her tears, and for the first time she didn't feel alone. The shame that once crushed her shoulders now belonged to someone else. And the square, witness to it all, seemed to breathe easier. It wasn't just a story of abandonment, it was the unveiling of a truth that had finally found its voice. The black car still waited, but the millionaire couldn't bring himself to get in. His hand touched the door, but the entire square had become a wall of eyes and raised phones. Every camera was a courtroom. Every round of applause for the mother was a sentence. He tried to step forward, but the crowd shouted in unison, "Own your children!" "Coward! Don't run now!" The sound echoed between the buildings. No bodyguard, no armor could save him. For the first time in a long while, he had no control over the story. The mother, steady despite fresh tears, raised the twins for all to see. The image was powerful, a thin woman in worn clothes, holding two babies to her chest like trophies of courage. There was no luxury, but there was strength, and that strength moved the crowd. The old man, voice grave, raised his hand asking for silence. "We're not asking him to take any child. What's asked is justice. Justice is to recognize, to accept, to help without stealing a mother's right. If he still has an ounce of shame, let him do the minimum. Ensure these children have dignity without tearing them from the arms that love them." The square erupted in applause. The millionaire, cornered, had no choice. He swallowed hard and finally spoke. "Fine, I'll help. I'll pay whatever is needed, but I don't want my name plastered across cheap headlines." The old man replied stern, "This isn't about money. It's about humanity. Nobody here cares about your glossy magazines. They just want to see a man take responsibility for his own blood. You can sign contracts, you can hire lawyers, but if you don't accept this now, your image will never recover. You're already ruined." The words landed like hammer strikes. The millionaire wiped his face, defeated. The crowd's applause grew louder, and with every clap he shrank more. The car, once a symbol of power, now looked like a cell for escape. He took a deep breath, looked at the mother, and muttered almost in a whisper, "I will provide help, money, supplies, but I won't take anyone with me. Let that be clear." The mother didn't answer right away. Her tears flowed, but they weren't of defeat. They were of relief. She pulled the twins close and spoke loudly, so all could hear. "I never asked for luxury, never asked for palaces, never asked for a last name in magazines. I only asked that my children wouldn't go hungry. If today they will have more than yesterday, it isn't because of him. It's because truth defeated silence." The crowd applauded as if standing before a heroine. Shame had switched sides. Dignity, once trampled, now bloomed in the open. The millionaire slipped into the car, avoiding every gaze. The driver shut the door in a hurry. The engine growled, but it couldn't drown out the jeers filling the square. He left, stripped of what money could never buy: respect. The old man turned back to the mother, resting his hand on her shoulder. "You didn't need justice from expensive courts. Today, justice was made here, before everyone. And your children will grow knowing they never had shame, only pride in the mother who defended them to the end." She nodded, her face tired, but lit by the strength she had finally claimed. The square, witness to the fight, seemed to breathe differently, as if all had understood that wealth isn't measured in cars, but in courage. And in that moment, it wasn't the millionaire who held power. It was her. The crowd began to disperse. The curious tucked away their phones, some still commenting loudly, others walking silently, lost in thought about what they had just witnessed. But at the center remained the image no one would ever forget. A mother raised by her own courage, hugging her two children as if guarding her own heart. She looked at the twins. The smaller one was quiet, sucking his thumb, as if he had won a war without noticing. The other, eyes wide open, stared at the world, as if sensing something important had happened. The mother kissed each forehead, tears falling, and whispered softly, "You will never be forgotten, never sold, never torn away from me. As long as I breathe, you'll have someone fighting for you." The woman from the market, who was still nearby, wiped her eyes and said, "They will be proud of you. One day, when they're grown, they'll understand the battle their mother fought alone. And they'll say, 'We were never abandoned.'" The old man, steady, stepped closer once more. "Remember, you didn't walk away defeated. Today, in front of everyone, you earned something greater than money. You earned respect. And respect isn't bought, it's built." She smiled through her tears. For the first time in a long while, she didn't feel invisible. She felt her struggle had been seen, that her love, even in silence, had finally found a voice. The twins, cradled in her arms, finally fell asleep. The crying had stopped. Her heart, though still wounded, now beat lighter, not because life had suddenly become easy, but because she knew she would never again walk with her head bowed. The shame had changed owners. As she walked away from the square, slow but steady steps, she left behind more than just a scene. She left a mark. That woman was no longer the one who arrived begging. She was the mother who raised her voice against power, who faced mockery and humiliation, and who won with the only weapon she had, the truth. And in the echo of that truth, everyone who witnessed it carried a lesson. Wealth doesn't define character. Love cannot be measured in numbers. And courage, even in fragile hands, can tear down walls built by pride. If this story touched you, leave your comment below. I want to know, what would you have done in this mother's place? Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who needs to hear this message. Every action you take helps make sure stories like this continue to be told.